Good evening and welcome to all the participants. We are delighted to have Air Marshal Anil Khosla with us. We are going to talk about the strategic thinking, the dragon versus the elephant. Now, allow me to do a quick introduction and then we present you Air Marshal Anil Khosla. I'm trying to run through this very fast because we need to save all the time and make sure that we learn from Air Marshal as much as possible this evening. So I'll share my screen now. So WiseViews is now on its 108th leadership conversation. Today, as I mentioned, we have Air Marshal Anil Khosla with us. So after the intro, the talk will be for about 20 minutes, followed by 40-50 minutes of Q&A. It's my privilege to present a brief bio of Air Marshal. He's an alumnus of the National Defense Academy and was commissioned in the fighter stream of the Indian Air Force. To his credit, he has over 4,000 hours of accident-free flying, mainly on different variants of Jaguar, MiG-21 and Kiran aircraft. He is equally experienced in both ground attack and air defense roles with a specialization in the maritime role. For his distinguished service, Air Marshal Anil Khosla has been awarded 3 presidential awards, namely Param Vasisht Seva Medal, Ati Vishisht Seva Medal and Vayu Sena Medal, and has been commended by the CAS Chief Air Staff. He was also commended by AVSM during the flying training period as a cadet for force landing during second solo. We'll learn more about it from Air Marshal himself. He's a postgraduate from Defense Services Staff College. He's an A2 category flying instructor and a fighter strike leader. He has had the distinction of standing first in the order of merit in all the attended courses. He was awarded the Commandant's Medal during higher command course at Army War College. He has attended the Senior Defense Management course at the College of Defense Management. Some of the notable achievements, he handled Doklam operations against China and Balakot strike against Pakistan. He held various important appointments like Vice Chief of Air Staff, Air Officer Commanding-in-Chief, Eastern Air Command, Director General Air Operations, DGAO, Senior Air Staff Officer, Central Air Command, Air Officer Commanding JNK along with NC of Army, and AOC Maritime Air Operations along with Navy. Served in all the operational commands of the IAF in all the sectors, commanded 2 important operational bases, Ambala and Jaisalmer. He worked extensively with Army and Navy, associated with several government ministries and agencies, including NTRO, DRDO, ISRO, NDMA, and Defense PSUs. Involved with the formulation of Air Force war plans, force structure planning and capability building. He handled, which includes planning, monitoring and execution, several internal and international exercises and disaster relief situations, both within the country and abroad. He holds 2 MPhil degrees in Defense and Strategic Studies. He is currently pursuing PhD on China. The thesis titled, How Does Dragon's Brain Work? He delivered talks on military subjects like leadership, China and Pakistan, air power, maritime air operations and IAF in military academic institutions, including NDC, College of Air Warfare, Army War College, College of Naval Warfare, College of Defense Management, and Defense Services Staff College. He is a distinguished fellow at United Services Institute, USI, and Center of Air Power Studies, CAPS. He is on the editorial board of the College of Air Warfare Journal and CAPS Journal, that is Blue Yonder. Strategic Advisor, Aerospace and Defense Division of the Synergia Foundation, also instructor at Peninsula Foundation, and worked with several think tanks and organizations. His academic work also includes writing papers on air power, geopolitics and security issues, conduct of strategic exercises, book reviews, mentoring, and motivational talks. Besides all this, he holds various hobbies and interests. He has been a golfer, plays billiards and snooker and pool player. Favorite pastime for Air Marshal is puzzle solving, which he has pursued up to the national level, 11 times Sudoku nationals and 3 times puzzle solving nationals. That's an amazing and impressive profile, and we are really lucky to have you, sir, with us. I request everyone to join me in welcoming Air Marshal Anil Khosla. Good evening, sir, and thank you. I also welcome my esteemed colleague, Professor Prasad, who heads the academic wing at the ICFAI group. He brings with himself a rich experience of 3 decades. He was an entrepreneur and a corporate leader and now an academic. He graduated from IIT Bombay and subsequently from IIM Kolkata, and he published several books, articles, and presented papers in India and abroad. I am also there. Thank you, sir. We are all eagerly waiting for you to talk to us. Over to you, sir, and we will come back to you after your opening remarks with the interactive session of Q&A. Thank you once again, sir.
Thank you very much, ICFAI, for giving me this opportunity. And thank you, Director Sudhakar Raoji, for kind words which you said for me. And also to Director Prasad for having me over on this interactive session. And I'm looking forward to it. And the topic is very, very relevant and a very, very current topic. And it's at the moment challenge for India, how to deal with the dragon. And, in all the writings, a lot is written about the military power and the muscle power of any place or country or this. But how does the mind work is a very, very important factor, actually. And I'm glad that you've chosen this topic about the strategic thinking of both the countries. So time is short, so I will straight away jump into the topic and I'll speak a bit fast because I have to cover a lot of ground. And most important is I'm looking forward to the interactive session. That is where, it becomes interesting. That is where I stop talking and start answering what you want to hear and what you want to know. So I will be just tagging few issues related to the topic. I will initially put few things in perspective so that, the base is formed. And then I will speak a little bit about the India-China equation relations and pluses and minuses. And then I'll go into the third part, which will be the strategic thinking. And in the Q&A session, maybe we can cover how to deal with that. So let me start. Perspective-wise, India, Pakistan, and China is a strategic triangle. And it's a very, very important triangle for the geopolitics and the future of Asia. How I put across is that the 3 countries are tied to each other by cartographic mischief. What is the cartographic mischief? We are the victims of cartographic mischief. The colonial rulers, when they left, the division which they did of the territory, they just did it on the map without taking into consideration the actual ground features. Generally, the boundaries are divided by rivers or the ridges or the mountains. But here what they did was they just drew a line on the map, and that to a thick line, which when translated onto the ground, covers a lot of area. And it leaves a lot of scope for misinterpretation or a interpretation according to one's own benefit. So that is how I call it. That's why I call it cartographic mischief. And so what has happened is the 3 countries, the relations have started because of this issue. Okay. As far as India is concerned, at the moment we are facing 2 inimical neighbors, and both are nuclear powered, Pakistan and China. And that is a issue. Pakistan is an irritant, and China is a challenge because it is growing militarily, it is growing economically, and it is becoming powerful. It is competing with USA. And problem is that both Pakistan and China are in collusion. So that becomes a bigger problem. I'll leave this issue at here, and I'll jump into India-China, similarities and dissimilarities. Both are very, very old civilizations, thousands of years of old civilizations. Both are very heavily populated. 2/5 of the world's population resides in these 2 countries, almost 40%. And recently, you must have read, India has overtaken the population, total population. China was the highest, now India is the highest. The religious, actually, Confucianism is not a religion which originated in China, and the Buddhism, they appeared at the same time. Both countries got independence also almost at the same time, 47 and 49. That is where the similarities end. Now, if you take present situation, the China GDP is almost 5 times that of India. The balance of trade is heavily in favor of China. The Chinese ideology is secularism with what they call it as secularism with Chinese flavor. That is the term they have used. They are autocratic, they are atheists and communists. Communism is the what they follow. Whereas India is a democratic country, people are very, very religious minded, and it's a secular country. As far as the ambitions are concerned, as I said, China is competing with USA, wants to be global power. It is expansionist in nature, and it doesn't believe much in religion, but in certain rules, social rules, as you say. Okay. Whereas India has no such, I won't say ambitions, but it doesn't have that many. It has aspirations, but it doesn't go overboard on these things. I'll talk about this issue a bit more when we talk about the Chinese, how does the brain work and how does the mind work. Okay, as far as the relationship is concerned, historically, there were good relations in both the countries up to 1959. Then the Tibet invasion took place and Dalai Lama came to India. That is when the relations started spiraling down. And we resulted in 1962 war, which you are aware of. And thereafter, the things were quiet, except for one odd exchange in 1967, where a few shots were fired. But post 2014, that is last about 8 or 9 years, the things have changed. China has become more aggressive. China has become, more belligerent and started incursions into our territory. The frequency of these incursions are increasing. And if you see the news, every 2 to 3 years, a serious sort of situation developed. Chumar incident in 2015-16, then Doklam happened in 2017-18. Now recently Galwan happened. So what is happening is there is becoming a loss of trust between the two countries. The relations which were cooperative are became competitive, and now they are reaching a stage where there is a potential for even a conflict. So that is where now what is China's? If you see what are the factors, why are these things happening? As I said, ideology is different. Okay, China believes in one China policy and claims quite a bit of territory. Tibet is the next, and even Arunachal Pradesh of ours, they is a part of earlier this thing Tibet and a part of China. They follow a string of pearls you must have heard of. We can talk about it later. Developing neighbors all around us and getting them on their side by whatever means, either by checkbook diplomacy or by coercion or whichever means. Pakistan, Nepal, Bangladesh, Myanmar, Sri Lanka, Maldives. If you see all around us, they have influenced these countries. They believe in opportunism. Salami slicing you must have heard of. I'll not go into details, but the salami slicing is becoming nibbling now, bigger chunks. And the problem is if it becomes gobbling, then becomes a problem for us. The economic trade balance is heavily in favor of China, which is not liked by India. The Chinese side, their view is that India is hobnobbing with the West, Quad, getting into the Quad, which is anti-China. They don't like India standing up to China because the other small countries, then they get encouraged to stand against China. They feel that India is overambitious, and they feel that India is being nudged by US and Japan. So these are the irritants which, as far as China is concerned, that they're thinking. And they also feel that the India can, become a roadblock in their dream of regeneration, which I'll be talking about subsequently. Okay. Recently, the China has been following the policy of 3 E's: encirclement, entanglement, and ensnarement. Encirclement, as I covered, string of pearls. Entanglement it's the only country, India, China has resolved border disputes with 14 odd countries. Only India and its protectorate Bhutan, they have not resolved the borders. So I call it a pressure cooker theory. They keep heating up they keep the pressure cooker on the fire. They maintain the pressure in such a way that the situation is live, but it does not demand very drastic action or going into war. And as per their convenience, they increase the pressure or reduce the pressure. That is what I said, 2 to 3 years, they keep doing major incursions and major issues. Ensnarement, as I said, in this process, while they're doing this, they keep gobbling a little bit of territory here and there. And so that is why they're keeping the issue alive. Okay, it suits them due to whatever reason, diverting attention domestically or diverting attention internationally, keeping India contained, so there could be various factors, but it is there. And with their military modernization, they are becoming more and more aggressive and belligerent. You must have heard that during COVID times, you must have heard the term werewolf diplomacy, which the China was following. Okay, and as far as India is concerned, such activities, to my mind, will continue as per their thinking and as per their requirement. Okay, now let's get into the second part, slightly more interesting. How does the Chinese brain work? What are the things which they? So first is, what are the drivers? There are two major drivers which drive Chinese. One is avoid the century of humiliation. From 1839 to 49 was a time when they were humiliated badly. They got into drugs. They were exploited. There were famines. There were occupation by other forces. There's invasion, and it was a very, very dark period. So that has left a very, very indelible mark on their mind and their psyche, and they don't want to, to reoccur. So whatever the actions they take, they keep this in mind. And second is to get the lost glory back. At one time, China was the top country. This called Middle Kingdom syndrome. They want to revive that lost glory. I have what I call it as a cone theory. They don't see the world as a round globe. They see it as a cone. And they believe that they are in the center and they're on the top. That is how they view the world. Okay. So these are the two main drivers where the Chinese work with. Okay. As far as the thinking is concerned, they're still in a medieval mindset. Why I say this is, they believe in expansionism. They have a feeling that they're an empire state and not a nation. All the nations at the moment have realized that there is no expansion or whatever you have is there, and you govern and you deal with all the international this thing. But China feels that if you're strong, the empire expands. If you're weak, the thing. And they still feel that that the baser instincts they work by. That territory is very important. Absolute power is necessary, and there should be obeisance from everyone. So these are all very, very medieval baser thinking. As far as military or dealings are concerned, diplomacy is concerned, they follow Sun Tzu, whereas we follow Chanakya. Both are quite actually similar in their writings as far as various issues are concerned. And Sun Tzu, 2005 years old book of Art of War, is very, very still relevant. And one of the major things they follow is that achieve your objectives without fighting, without war. Without war is expensive. If you can do without it. And they have mastered this art of the term being called in the strategic circles is gray zone warfare, where these activities are, carried out, whether there is a hostility or whether there's a peace. There is no difference between hostility and peace, in cyber attacks and things like that. And they have mastered the art so much that everything and anything they can use as a weapon. And they firmly believe in three warfare theory. This term also is used in the strategic circles. That is, first is psychological warfare by posturing and influencing, intimidating, and deceiving the enemy. Second is propaganda, and that is history, making use of history and creating history, as per the convenience, changing it as per the convenience. The third is the legal warfare, preparing documents or supporting their claims with the documents which got no standing as such. They are just doctored documents. But all three, these combined, the effect is they start affecting the mind of the opponents. The next is, for them, the ends matter, not the means. Opportunism you have talked about. And Mao at one time had said, there was a pandemic earlier also. He said, there is a situation is such that there's chaos everywhere in the world. And he said, this situation is ideal. And in the pandemic also, if you noticed, they were very, very aggressive. So they believe in opportunism. They don't have, like we are very God-fearing. They don't believe. They take opportunity, whether it's correct or wrong, or whether right or wrong. As far as treaties are concerned, human rights are concerned, laws are concerned, norms are concerned, morality is concerned, they got no qualms about disturbing them. They exploit them actually. All right. So that is how their thinking works. As far as the domestic issues are concerned, they make their people believe that leader is supreme and then the party is supreme. Even the defense forces are owned by the party. Can you imagine? And either you toe the line or you get eliminated. I have a term that they rule with the iron fist with a velvet glove, and they monitor their people. And a very interesting thing. In other countries, people want to get into the Forbes list where they publish people who are doing very well economically and this thing. And if you come into the list, you're considered, a success. But in China, nobody wants to come. It is called kills pigs list. That means anybody who comes in that list is generally subdued because it's considered that he might be an alternate powerhouse. That's how it works. They keep their people in a tortoise shell. The media, there are two media, one for domestic consumption and one for the world consumption. And the world exposure is according to their needs and according to their control. So that is how is what I call Chinese domestic politics. You must have seen that serial Game of Thrones, where there's rivalry, conflicts, deceit, alliances, betrayals. That's what goes on. And this sort of filters down to international engagements as well. So they don't believe in friends. All the countries have three classifications: friends, enemies, and neutral. And China has got only two classifications: either you are enemy or you are subordinate. No friend. The so-called friends which they have at the moment, also they fought wars with them. They fought war with Russia. They have annexed the Russian territory, that is Mongolia. Okay, so all engagements which they do are for their benefit. Debt traps, checkbook diplomacy, and talk of anywhere. And the world slowly is realizing that. Whereas India, when they engage, it is not only, it is for mutual benefit. We try to empower the people whom we do dealings with. Chinese believe in position of strength, okay, and they prefer bilateral engagements rather than multilateral. So I will leave it at this. China, if China, when the word is taken, what comes to the mind is it's a riddle, it's an enigma, it's a mystery. They're very, very secretive. Okay. Second thing which comes to mind is autocratic way of operating. They feel democracy is a weakness. It's a weakness because decision making takes time and is very laborious process. And secondly, implementation is difficult. They feel autocratic is a better way. They are oppressive in nature. They are dictatorial in nature. So that is what comes to mind. The third thing which comes to mind is that they are unreliable, unpredictable, and deceitful. So there is a total lack of trust when you're dealing with them. Okay. Then aggressive and belligerent is the new thing which has started, because earlier the policy was, gain power, but be, lie low at the moment. But as they have started increasing during the COVID, we have seen they become very, very aggressive and belligerent, maybe because of the opportunism or maybe because of getting the power too early. That is, I call it power intoxication. Or third reason could be, diversionary tactics to avoid world attention from what they've done in the COVID, what their contribution has been, to maybe divert attention towards that. So as far as I think China is concerned, that is how you describe their thinking. As far as India is concerned, we are dealing with them, but we are quite opposite in whatever I covered as far as China is concerned in our dealings and our way of looking things, our engagement with the world and everything. So as I was saying, our thinking, our strategic thinking is slightly different. I will end here another 30 seconds. The only mistake I think we did, a mistake, or that time, the debate goes on between, where do you invest, either in development or building up your military and other capabilities. There is a thing called deterrence. The deterrence is that you be strong enough so that nobody troubles you. Okay. So what happened was, this deterrence depends on how many enemies you have, what are their capabilities, and also third factor, what is their attitude. So since China was lying dormant, we thought that China will not engage with us militarily. So we delayed our, modernization of forces, increasing our deterrence value, I would say. But as I said, 2014 onwards, the attitude has totally changed. And also the military capability wise, because the economic rise has been there and it is getting translated to military might, and they're competing with the USA, they are becoming powerful at a very fast pace, rapidly, and also their attitude is changing. Both these things combined has now forced India to take action and build up our, military power as well as economic power, as well as overall, whatever you say, that is CNP, that is comprehensive national power, so that, we become the deterrence value increases. We are a bit late into it. We have stepped onto the gas, we have got into the next gear, but the need of the hour is to go into even higher gear. I will stop here, and I think we'll get into interactive session that will be more interesting. Thank you very much for
Thank you,
patience.
sir. Thank you very much. It's been a very interesting coverage of the landscape, which is pretty huge, not just in terms of the geographic distance between India and China, but in terms of the huge canvas in the theater of war and the kinds of tactics these nations have adopted over a period of time. What we prima facie understood is that the respective strategies and the strategic thinking emanated from their core beliefs, both for India as well as for China. And today, China stands as enigmatic, unreliable, and pretty aggressive, belligerent, and non-democratic in its approach, which are completely or diametrically opposite to what India believes. And India has been believing and practicing these values over centuries, over several years of our existence. I think that sets the context, and there's been, you have provided several hints. In other words, there's a lot of ammunition for us here to look at, in the sense we can have several questions and answers around what has been spoken till now. But I'll take a moment to acknowledge the fact that we are joined by some very, very distinguished people around the screen this evening. I want to thank each and every one. We have a proven leader from the theatre of war itself, Air Marshal Harikumar. Welcome, sir. And we have several leaders from industry, academia, from various parts of the country, and probably some of them are from abroad who have joined for this conversation. I welcome all of them for this wonderful conversation. You have been joining every week, and this dragon versus the elephant discussion is very curious for all of us to learn from. I'll now request Professor Prasad to initiate the first cluster of Q&A. So we'll have two clusters of Q&A, and first cluster will be taken by Professor Prasad, and I'll come back for the second one. And all those who have some questions, they can raise the hand. We'll make the participants ask you directly in the second cluster, and they can be ready with their questions as well. Over to you, Professor Prasad. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Rao. Thank you, sir, for an excellent beginning and presentation. As far as the audience is concerned, as far as the program is concerned, I think strategic thinking is a big subject. All those out there, even if it's not in war, in business, I think strategic thinking is an extremely important subject, and you've given us some insights on what you have looked at. And I think in this context, understanding the context well, not making mistakes in understanding the context, I think you've already highlighted that. With that, sir, I'll begin and move into the first question, which is, what are the goals of strategic thinking in the case of China?
Maybe you can take 2 or 3 questions at a time. That would be better.
Yeah. Along with that, you said there are 2 questions which I'll add to that. It'll be, it will be into that value chain. How do you look at China's threats and vulnerabilities, as well as India's threats and vulnerabilities, and the scope for collaboration apart from the challenge? Yeah,
very, very interesting questions, all 3 of them. Thank you very much. Before I start answering, can I take a minute or 2? Actually, 2 things. When Sudhakar ji was talking and when Prasad ji, you were talking, it triggered my mind. I forgot to cover one thing, like Sudhakar ji pointed out. The Chinese also believe in their very old civilization into history. And they take a lot of lessons, and they take a lot of actions, taking examples from their history. For example, CPEC and BRI and CPEC, this thing. This is all revival of the ancient Silk Route, which was there earlier. This is one of the examples. That is one thing which came to my mind. Secondly, you mentioned, although people may not be directly involved in the war, the nature of warfare is changing. As I covered, gray zone operations. So like cyber attack could be on any of our social services, health, traffic management, banks. So what is happening is, in the warfare, it is no longer restricted to military now. Everyone gets involved into the war fighting, or it's a whole of nation approach. So that is another thing. Yeah. So, and you mentioned Marshal Harikumar. We are coachmates. We joined India together in 1976. That is 49 years back. and he's a very dear friend. And if he's listening to me, hello to him, and I'm glad that he's there. And next thing, before I answer the questions specifically is, if there are questions which are left out, please send to me. I will reply to them one-to-one, or I have a blog with about 350 posts now. It's a 3-year-old blog, and I keep writing about all these issues. And whenever I give talks, if the questions are left over, I answer and put it on the blog so people can read through it. Okay, so now your interesting questions, 3 of them, that is, what are the goals of China on this as far as strategic thinking is concerned? And as I said, China's main aim is to get its lost glory back. That is number 1 position. And they're competing with USA at the moment. They're far from it. But in this in mind, they have put timelines. And 2049 is the deadline which they're given for this achievement. And what it means is, that economically and militarily, you become so strong that you are number 1 power, and you are, the only sole power in the world. And at the moment, they're accepting that maybe 2 suns in the sky, but they believe that only 1 sun should be in the sky. So that is their goal, and that is their aim, and they're working toward it in a very, very scientific way. That is one. The military modernization which they are doing is in a very, very scientific way. They've studied after the Gulf War. They've studied all the militaries of the world. And earlier, what happened was the Chinese military was not attuned towards, and not focused towards war fighting. As I said, it is owned by the party, and basically they were for governing, they were for the running the country, and they were used for subduing the the people of the country. And later on, they realized that if they have to get their dream, what they're dreaming of, they have to have a strong military. They have to have a military which is focused towards war fighting. They need to modernize it. They need to have expeditionary capability. With this in mind, they started working on it in a very, very scientific way. After Gulf War, they studied all the militaries, and they started the modernization under 5 or 6 verticals. Will not go into those details. And they started developing expeditionary capability, that is spending more money on Navy as well as Air Force. These are the 2 services which give expeditionary capability, ability to project power outside your shores. You go away from your mainland. All right. So that is their strategic long-term aim. And they have timelines in between also. They have been achieving these timelines. There's a lot of debate which goes on whether they achieved, partially achieved, not achieved. They have been achieving. But China, the problem is it's a very, very close country. So whether to believe what they say is, it has to be taken with a pinch of salt. You don't know the reality as such. Okay. The second question was, sorry, can you repeat that?
China's threats and vulnerabilities as well as India's threats and vulnerability.
Yeah. So China's threats and vulnerabilities as well as India's threats and vulnerability. China's what I call is fault lines. Okay. And any strategic thinker always keeps following the fault lines. So when you are dealing with any inimical nation, you need to know the Chinese or the enemy's fault lines. Okay. And these fault lines are generally monitored. As far as strengths are concerned, let me finish the strength and then I'll come back to this thing. As far as strengths are concerned, as I said, economically, they have become the factory of the world. Although after the COVID, the decoupling has started, but it's not as easy as it sounds. But decoupling has started and it started affecting them. Militarily, they are going at a very fast pace, very ahead. And their civil military, the civil military fusion, which is they call it, is a very, very good example under 6 verticals. They're very, very fused together. And they work together, the civil and the military. And as far as their other strength is the technology, they have invested big way into technology, in quantum computing, in hypersonics, in robotics, in unmanned platforms, in chip warfare, you must have heard, manufacturing. I mean, they've gone into technology in a big way. I will not cover whether how they've gone about it by reverse engineering as well as industrial espionage and others. As I said, for them, the means don't matter, the ends. And so technology wise, they have gone ahead in many ways. The organizational changes which they are bringing out in their warfare ecosystem and the military is another good example. They're looking ahead at the future of war, as I said, gray zone warfare, cyber warfare, space warfare, information warfare, electronic warfare. They put all these new domains, 4 domains under one head, and they made a separate service out of it. Even America, who's got a very good organization, is looking at Chinese organization. They find that is better, and they're trying to reorganize themselves. So these are few of the strengths. The weaknesses, of course, their thinking itself is a very, very medieval, which is not accepted by the world as such. The way of dealing, the way of conducting negotiations or the engagement with the world is also not very good example, and the world is taking cognizance of that. And the other drawbacks in their system is the hunger for, firstly, the hunger for territory. These days, it is very unacceptable for people to, take territorial gains unwillingly. And that is what they're doing exactly. They've taken Hong Kong also, they've taken control, but they've done it well in the sense that, as I said, without fighting a war. Now, Taiwan is on their radar, and you keep hearing every day that whether they will fight or not fight, they will go into it, or they will invade it or not invade, what will USA do? And when the Ukraine war started, this debate even heated up further. The next fault line is not exactly a fault line, but it is there, the hunger, because they're a growing nation, hunger for natural resources, oil, energy, food, minerals, rare earths. So what is happening is they're going outside the world, they're engaging other, if you see, they go to Africa, they go to all other countries, but whatever engagements they do, and they have a surplus infrastructure making capability, which they're using it to make infrastructure in these countries, and in the process, buy rights to mine, buy rights to either do agriculture there, and things like that. So their engagements are always with something in mind, something to gain from it. So that is another fault line which can be exploited. So there are fault lines. There are, I call it, when we talk about our own country, there are also called red lines. Red lines are that you promulgate that these are my red lines. If you cross this red line, expect this thing. But drawing a red line is a two-edged sword. If you draw a red line, you should be able to, stand up to it. You should be able to honor it. And it should not be that enemy crosses the red line and you're not able to respond appropriately. So that is very important. Okay. I'll leave it at that. Our strengths and weaknesses, I don't think I will go into detail of those for obvious reasons. And that is one of my thinking is that is the reason why India has not promulgated its national security policy as such, because that also gives an idea. Although to my mind, everything is known actually. This world is very, very transparent these days. All these things are known. But I think that is one of the reasons this thing. Then the third question you said was, what was it? Sudhakarji, what was the third one?
Scope for collaboration in such a scenario.
That is a very, very important this thing. I have a view on this. May not be, a lot of people may not be in agreement with it. We are, although on a cross path at the moment. But my view is that, this coming century is century of the Asia. We have been exploited too long by the West. Okay, if you see the history, both our country, all three countries, and a whole lot of other countries, the West has been ruling. Okay, and empire the sun never set. You heard this phrase so many often. And now, in spite of that exploitation, if you see, the Asian countries are doing quite well. You see China, you see India, you see some other countries. The economy is rising. They're doing quite well. Their demography is very good. They've got a good, working hands at the moment. The age profile is in their favor. Not in China, of course, but India definitely. It's a two-edged sword once again. So what I'm getting at is that in spite of those exploitation for so long, the Asian countries are doing well. And as comparatively, the European countries on the downward trend. So my funda is that this coming century is a century of the Asia. Now it will be in Western interest that if we keep doing infighting. Now my theory is that in case we can resolve our differences and work together, I think it will benefit both of us, and it will benefit and the whole continent as well as Asia will do well. That is my personal view on this subject.
Thank you, sir. So the next one is going ahead. What are the major headwinds for China and India in the long run?
Major
Headwinds for China and India in the long run.
Yeah. So headwinds, what you're mentioning is maybe the problem areas. That's what you're
Yes,
hinting?
yes.
So major headwind as far as China is concerned is, they said, it is originated from its policies, its in way of engagement with the world. So major thing is that at the moment, he's made too many enemies. Okay, he's trying to make amends. He's trying to correct the situation, but it has become difficult for him. So it definitely has slowed down his progress. May not have stopped it, but if we can rectify this, it's a difficult task. So that is the biggest headwind at the moment, as far as China is concerned. As far as India is concerned, as I said, the major thing is we need to militarily increase our muscle power, but we are constrained by economic conditions. We are doing well, but we have to divide between development as well as I said, military power, spending on military power, and it will take time. Developing your deterrence capability and your capabilities, converting those technologies, converting those capabilities into capabilities for warfare takes time. It's not easy. And like Air Force and Navy are very, very technology intensive services, especially the Air Force. So we need to invest in technology. Plus, we need to infuse technology into our system. We need to spend money on various things. We need to modernize it. All this thing will take time. And so that is the major challenge at the moment. That means somehow prevent any conflict or engagement, and while doing this, keep building our muscle power, keep building our CNP, as I said, cumulative national power, keep increasing our deterrence value. That is the biggest challenge at the moment.
Thank you, sir. In this context, when you have an adversary who doesn't play by the rules, what principles do you adopt as a country?
Yeah, so as I said, you have a very, very sharp question, I must say. How do you deal with such a person? So first is that trust has been broken totally. So always be on the guard, number one. Number two, when you're engaging with him, read every letter, read every sentence, every word, every letter, and in between every letter. Thereafter, analyze it so much that maybe he may not have analyzed it so much. That is, what is the scope of reading in between the letters and hidden agendas, and be prepared for it. Okay. China does another thing, as I was telling you in this salami slicing. In all these engagement, what it does is it takes 2 steps forward and takes only 1 step back. And in that 1 step, he has gained. But my theory is he takes 2 steps sideways also, 1 to the left, 1 to the right, or maybe more, to confuse the issue. And in that confusion, he creates so much of confusion that you forget the main issue. You get diverted. Your focus gets diverted. Your concentration gets diverted. So beware of it. Okay. Third is, when you're dealing with him, be prepared that he will use all sort of measures to achieve his objective. Fourth is, as I come back to the nature of warfare, which is changing, be prepared. To my mind, we need to do a lot more. It's not only Army, Navy, or Air Force, or China, which has got 2 more services. They have a rocket force, second artillery, they call it, long range vectors. And they have a JSS, Joint Services Staff Force. That means what I covered, these domains of cyberspace, electronic, and information in one domain, or in one service. These are all future challenges which we'll face. So we need to prepare for these, especially when we are dealing with China. And last one is, be prepared to have alternatives, have plan B for every facet of life. I'm not talking warfare, facet of life, because of the Chinese activities in the non-military domain. So these are 4 or 5 things which I propose that this is how we deal with China.
Excellent, sir. Excellent. Coming to the last question in this cluster, currently, what is stopping China from using full force to occupy territories or go the full way?
Yeah. So
whether India or Taiwan or others.
Absolutely true. So at the moment, he doesn't have the muscle power, adequate muscle power to deal or do such action. Okay. And no, before that, I would say that firstly, they follow the philosophy of if it can be achieved without fighting, that's the ideal situation. Okay, that's how they have taken full control of Hong Kong. You see, Pakistan has become a vassal state of China. It tells Pakistan to jump, Pakistan jumps. It's a total control. Economically, militarily, they have made them so reliant on them. And it's become a total vassal state of China. So without even doing anything, without any military action. Hong Kong, if you take examples, they've taken over the control. So that is first philosophy. Now, second is even if they do it with force, they will create a reaction. And they're very smart. As I told you, the pressure cooker theory, that they maintain the pressure in such a way that the response which is there from the enemies or response which is there from the adversaries doesn't demand a full-scaled war or a skirmish or a attack. Now, they realize that in case they try to achieve it militarily, the world will unite. Okay, and world will start taking actions against them. At the moment, they are not capable of withstanding that kind of retaliation. That is a simple, straightforward. Come 2049, if they achieve their objectives and if they become so powerful, they have shown their trailer. I say the movie is yet to come. The trailer they have shown during the COVID, and you can imagine what will happen to the world scene.
Fantastic, sir. So I think I come back to that main point that you made in the previous set, that is this beware or be aware from the confusion that we create, whether there are any fresh opportunities which come up, and then how to deal with that and how to make use of that. Thank you, sir. We come to the end of this cluster. I hand it to Professor Sudhakar.
Thank you, sir. Very interesting the way you have brought out some of the ways in which the dragon is thinking, and those are really alarming. The ways in which the dragon has been thinking right from the beginning, and that has become much more aggressive of late. Sir, just for a while, we believe that everything is fair in love and war, and we'll focus on war for now. We have noticed that the world has been ruled by the West. The British has conquered, everyone has been a colony, their hegemony ran through centuries. And subsequently, United States has become a superpower, and if you believe the conspirational theories, they have adopted all kinds of means, probably, if not in your face kind of negative methods, but they did probably adopt all kinds of means to bring in what is called their hegemony in terms of technology, in terms of economic power, in terms of creating war and warlike situations, and then making sure that there are allies by hook or crook. There are allies to United States. Probably it is now the time of China, and what is wrong if they think that their hegemony should now prevail starting 2049 or even before? Am I wrong in thinking so?
No, sir, you are absolutely right. And, everyone keeps saying negative things about China. But I feel that if you are world number one, to reach their stage and to maintain that stage, you will do anything. And US is no less. Only difference between the US approach and Chinese approach is that, US may not have used those means openly. Okay. The undesired, deceitful means openly, whereas China has used it openly. Number one. The US may have spent money and invested in technology with their hard effort, maybe to a certain extent, where China has used unfair means by, infiltrating into the various academia, infiltrating into industry, infiltrating into R&D organizations, stealing the technology and reverse engineering and doing that. The next thing is same. China and US are no different. They have interests. They don't have friends. But US in their approach has little bit more friendly approach as compared to China. So your thinking is right, but only difference is that China does it blatantly and US does it maybe with more refined way and not so blatantly, which doesn't come out so strongly as China when it does that.
Sir, if that were to be true, that United States is a bit senior to China, and it has all kinds of investment and advancement made in technologies, why is still China a closed nation as far as information and its advancements are concerned, at least to United States? Doesn't United States already have a deco into how far China has gone, and therefore they know how to actually handle China, not becoming the hegemonic power that it dreams to be?
Yeah. Okay, that's another very interesting question. See, technology-wise, US in warfare, I will restrict to warfare because technology can be used in so many things. And technology in India, like let me put this, like in India, this is another thing which has changed in the last few years in India. That's why I'm bringing it out. It's an interesting point. In India, the technology used to be first used in the civil sector for benefit of people, whether it is in medical, whether it is for networking of your banks, of your railways, your whatever, this thing. Space, you take it, space technology in agriculture, space has infiltrated every possible mean. So in India, first used in civil area, and then it comes into military area. Whereas China, what is doing it in a parallel, that is in military as well as civil area. This is changing now in India also. And India is also investing in all these latest technologies, although the pace may be slower as compared to the others. Now, coming to the US and China, the same equation. So US so far has been maintaining militarily edge purely by technology. If you take the Air Force, I'm from the Air Force, so I'll take the example of the Air Force. If you see their aircraft, there is a thing called air dominance. Okay, there is a thing called air dominance. Air dominance is that you dominate the skies so much that the opposition doesn't dare to come into the air. That is air dominance. They have been achieving this by technology. Okay, you take the example of F-35 aircraft, which you must have heard, the latest. At the moment, speculation is on that the Prime Minister is going to USA. Big deals might come through, big technology infusion may take place into Indian defense industry. I just finished an article today on for Chanakya Forum on the same subject. And Aero India, if you see, the US came in a big way. So, coming back to the topic of F-35, it's the most advanced, technologically advanced aircraft at the moment. Although work is going on for 6th generation, 7th generation, but at the moment, F-35 is the most technologically advanced aircraft. The point I'm making is the USA has been keeping the dominance in the domain, whichever they want, by advanced technologies. Actually, they have got shaken up by how China has put ahead on the technological front. If you remember, I mentioned in some of the technologies that China has gone ahead of US. Okay, you take quantum computing and other things. Now, only hassle is, as I covered, and you also pointed out, why is China so closed? China is closed because of 2-3 reasons. Firstly, it is in their psyche. Okay, Sun Tzu, because of the psyche, the Sun Tzu, as I said, Sun Tzu said, you should always look different. If you're strong, look weak. If you're weak, look strong. Okay, that is what his philosophy. So China believes that they don't put all their cards on the table. So it is in their psyche, number one. Number two, we talked about fault lines. If they open up, the fault lines will be known. There is another school of thought in the strategic thinkers that whatever technology they have used in the military equipment, which they're claiming the capabilities to be certain amount, they also produce 5th generation, 4.5 generation aircraft. They're claiming that these aircraft are very advanced, but actually they're not. This is only on paper. This is one of the strategic thoughts with people. So if something is wrong with this thing, you will not be open. But having said that, China uses it very, very intelligently for a deceit, he will leak out information as and when required to influence the mind of the enemy. And he leak out only things which he wants the enemy to know. So this is a very, very complex situation. You wonder what to believe and what not to believe. Yeah.
In a scenario where you don't know what to believe and what not to, and this has been continuing for quite some time, it's nothing new. Advancements are definitely happening. Probably we'll have to believe that advancements are happening because it is important to believe that they are advanced. And on the diplomacy side, I think several talks our government has had with the dragon. What specific actions the elephant will have to take, according to you, to keep the dragon out of our borders?
Yeah. So very interesting questions once again. So, the dragon, as we said, we have to live with it. We have to deal with the situation. Correct. So what we need to do is a couple of things which I will come to in detail later. Some of the things which I mentioned earlier also means 7 or 8 things which I can share with you. As I said earlier, we keep China engaged. Okay. Engaged, when I say engaged in the sense we avoid a full-fledged war and bid for time. In this time, we keep building up our, national power, military power inclusive. That is one. Second, this is my views actually. This is nothing to do with the efforts or the government of India, obviously. So one is, open mind to collective security. When I say open mind to collective security, a lot of debate goes on whether we should join Quad, not join Quad. We have joined Quad, whether make it into a military alliance or not, whether we should join the West camp, US camp or not. Okay. We have never had a military alliance with anyone. That is our policy. Even 1971 war with Russia, it was not a military alliance. It was a friendship treaty. But my point is, at the moment, you need to keep your mind open. My theory is very simple, drawing from the school days. School days, you have a bully. And how do you deal with a bully? If you're a meek and a short chap like me, you make friends. And those friends collectively deal with the bully. So that is what. Third thing is that we need to have a multifaceted and multi-layered approach. That is the synergy between civil, military, and economy as well as military. A full-fledged overall, progress into the war or the deterrence capability or the cross-accumulative national power. Multifaceted, multi-layered approach. Then decoupling, which has started. There's an opportunity for India. Unfortunately, we are not able to encash on it the amount we should be. We have such a highly trained manpower. We have a very good working force. We have a lot of land available. We have resources available. Our ease of doing business should become even better. The business handling should become easy to deal with. We have all the ingredients. I think we should encash on this. Whatever comes out of China, we should be able to absorb and benefit from it. As support decoupling and opportunity, take on the opportunity. As we covered earlier, study the fault lines of China and keep a track of it. Use them if required. Tibet, Xinjiang, human rights, Mongolia, Hong Kong, Taiwan, internal dissent I talked about, energy needs, chip, trade, economy, food security, all these issues we keep, keep our knowledge alive on these fault lines. Okay, most important diplomatically, you also mentioned the word, we do not lose neighbors. Be magnanimous in approach, big brother, but keep them with us. Do not lose neighbors because that becomes a problem. Okay, as far as militarily is concerned, we need to spend money on military at the moment, even at the cost of a little bit of development. We need to infuse technology in a big way into our, war fighting machine. We need to integrate civil and military in a big way. Okay, we are doing it. We're doing it in this thing, but in a systematic, organized way, with a proper guidance, with a proper top-driven approach, and with the monetary support, we need to get into it. We need to get into this self-reliance, Atmanirbharta, in a big way, which we are doing. We need to go into 5th or 6th gear maybe on it. It's a big lesson which has come even from the Ukraine war, that nobody is going to come and fight the war for you. And you have to be self-reliant as far as military defense industry, and not only military defense, you have to be self-reliant in a whole lot of other issues. Your energy needs, your chip needs, your food needs. I mean, the whole loss of the self-reliance is in a very, very broad perspective and not only in military capability. We need to develop our capability, which is developing very fast rate as far as military is concerned, but capacity also. It's a question of quantity and quality. That is what increases your deterrence value. We need to be ready for future challenges. Again, I'm repeating for the third time, your cyber, space, info, and electronic. Very, very important. Okay. Then last and most important is Andaman Nicobar Islands. We have a very, very strategic location of Andaman Nicobar Islands. Okay, they're called Iron Curtain for India. The Malacca Straits is the area where all the trade goes through, and it's a big problem for China if it is blocked. That is why he's going into CPEC and alternate routes. That is why he's developing sea access through Myanmar, maybe through Bangladesh, maybe through Pakistan. He's taken over the Gwadar port, is Sri Lanka. So he's trying to have alternate routes. So this Andaman Nicobar from Iron Curtain, we should make it into a steel curtain. Similar, not to that extent because the islands are smaller, similar structure we need to have on the western side, Agati Islands and other islands. Okay, so these are few of the things which we can do to deal with the dragon in future, militarily as well as otherwise.
Amazing, sir. I think you mentioned several steps, multi-layered approaches that you have mentioned to handle China and make sure that China is out of India's borders. As interesting as it is, we have Air Marshal Harikumar raising his hand, one fighter pilot asking a question to another strike leader. Over to you, sir.
Good evening. Great hearing you and watching this presentation. I just want to ask a question. In strategic thinking, what are the key technologies that need to be exploited by us? And the second question is, when we look at relative strengths between India and China, what are the education standards and technology standards between these countries? Thank you.
Yeah, so a very interesting question, Hari. Thanks a lot. And good to hear your voice. Yeah, it's a very interesting question of technology. I mean, it will take me maybe 1 hour plus it's a different subject in altogether. But I'll just mention few, as I've already mentioned to a few of them. So one is the quantum computing. That is in a big way affecting the military, the quantum computing. And along with quantum computing is the space-based network, net. So it is a question of how fast you can process data, how fast you can compute, and availability of data at various points. The combined effect is, the systems are becoming so much powerful. And also, if you add miniaturization to it, it is ideal for air industry. Because in the aircraft, you need something which are the systems which are very, very small. So if you see the modern aircraft, they are packed with computing power. Actually, they are jam-packed with computing. The amount of computing power which they have is phenomenal. So that is one. The second is hypersonics. Hypersonics is changing the way the war fighting is going on. That is the projectiles coming at you at speed more than 5 Mach, that is 5 times the speed of sound. And that changes the whole gambit of it. And not only that, these hypersonic weapons which they're being talked about have got another unique feature. Like the long-range vectors of ballistic missiles, they have a fixed trajectory. Whereas the hypersonic weapons, the trajectory can be varied by the controlling forces. So combined, what happens is it becomes a very, very potent weapon and unpredictable trajectory plus coming at a very, very high kinetic energy. So the whole gambit of warfare is changing in terms of your defense capabilities. You need a ballistic missile defense. You need to intercept, you need to catch them early, you need to intercept them at far distances so that they don't come onto your vital areas. So that is changing. Next most important technology which is changing the warfare is combined 3 technologies. That is your unmanned platform in every domain, may it be in the air, may it be on the land, may it be on the water, may it be subsurface, that is under the water. The unmanned platform. And China has mastered unmanned platforms, let me tell you. I visited there during an air show, and these unmanned platforms, aerial platforms I'm talking about, were a display. You took one step and you saw 3 different types of unmanned platform of different sizes, from quadcopters to fixed wing to big to small payload to big payload with small endurance to very high endurance. I mean, you name it, it was there. So they actually very interesting point with this. I'll just digress a little bit. China is investing into, because of the demography, China age profile is very at the moment old. So young people, every person who's a soldier who's in the services has got two sets of old people to look after back at home besides one child. So they are very averse to body bags. So they are investing heavy into two things. One is they call it no contact warfare. So one is into long range vectors. As I said, they have a second artillery as a separate service. And second is unmanned aerial platform. So this unmanned aerial platforms, what is happening is the manned platforms and the unmanned platforms have got both advantages and disadvantages. The manned platform has got advantage of human mind being applied, which is very, very flexible and adaptable to various situations. Whereas unmanned platforms have got all the advantages which are disadvantages of a physical limitations of a human body. So what is new concept which is coming up is marrying up the two, taking the advantage of both. That is, it is called loyal wingman concept, where you have a manned person leading and all the unmanned platforms working with him for a common cause. Okay, so I call it mother goose concept. So that is where air warfare is heading, especially the 6th generation and beyond. The next thing with the unmanned platform is the swarm technology which is coming up. With miniaturization, as I said, and artificial intelligence coming in and unmanned platform, these three combined are making very, very potent and learning, what should I say, platforms. And this swarm technology is basically coming in where small, unmanned platforms or whatever you want to call it, platforms or insect-like gadgets, which work together in unison. You have already seen these displays in various, even in India, you've seen the displays where these unmanned platforms, they carry out a sky in the night times, carry out a display in the sky, and they're working like a perfect unison, like a ballet. So same thing can be used even in the warfare. So that is what is happening. Now, while all this is happening, also the anti-drone industry is flourishing because you need to address these. So you need to have systems. And these systems need multiple sensors and they need multiple very high data computing rates so that they can give you a sort of decision support system to deal with these sort of challenges. So these, there are a whole lot of other technologies also, but I'll not go into full details because it'll take too long. These are the three main things which are making a dynamic change into the whole warfare, gambit of warfare. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for that question and a very comprehensive answer. Academic level, it is interesting to know their investments running into several advanced technologies, but when you step back and see, it is scaring as well. The kind of advancement that China is making vis-a-vis India. We are not mere learners on the screen, but we are also subjects of this nation. So we understand the threat perception to that extent. Yes, we'll park that aside for a while and invite Mr. Krishnamohan Raju to ask his question. Over to you, Mr. Krishnamohan.
Very good evening, Air Marshal. My simple question is, when can we expect or will there be a time when India can be more proactive rather than be reactive to the Chinese, the incursions or the Chinese methodologies which is happening? When can India be more proactive to those methodologies where China will need to be a little bit more defensive? It could be a little bit naive at this juncture, but I would expect.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Why I'm laughing is I'll respond to your question with two of my ideas and the thing. One is, I wish that was true. And it would have been a dream come true for a military man like me, where I could be in the driving seat and dictate and not be reactive to this thing. Okay, that is one. Second thing is, as I covered earlier, it suits China at the moment to keep needling us. Yeah. And it's an entire game of, as I said earlier, the deterrence value, CNP, which I talked about it several times. It's like this. If you're strong and you are 6 feet tall and a muscular chap, nobody will take. Let me use an unparliamentary word. Not unparliamentary, means panga with you. So, but if you're meek
The
and all,
bully guy.
bully is the word. So if you're meek and if you're not strong enough, people will get tempted to push you around. So no, we are not pushovers. That is for sure. We are not pushovers. They also think 5 times before doing anything. And but at the moment, you're right. We cannot afford to be provocative at the moment. We are a bit reactive, but we do take action as and when required, and we don't tom-tom about it, and we do it quietly. Okay, that is one thing. And as far as when, I mean, if we continue growing economically the way we are, and we are recovered quite well from COVID, and you all must be reading economic indicators, and we are doing quite well recovery-wise. And if we continue growing and we are national power continues to increase, maybe a situation may come when we don't get pushed around. But for that, we will have to work a lot. Timelines, I can't promise you. We have to work a lot towards it, and we have to get over petty issues which we keep getting engrossed in various religious and political gains and other things. We'll have to get over it, and in a focused way, top driven, with monetary support. If we do in a proper way, build up our capabilities, I think a time may come when we don't get pushed around like that. I mean, I'm not pushed around. I'll say we remain reactive. So I'll leave it at that.
There is one question from audience: are there any permanent bases, Daulat Beg, Oldie, and Fokche?
So what do they want to know about it?
They want a confirmation from you, probably. That's why they're keyed in this question. Are there permanent bases like Daulat Beg, Oldie, and Fokche?
Yeah, okay. I'll not cover about these two bases specifically, but I'll give you a general overview of that area. Okay. So what has happened is that area is quite live, as you know, Leh Ladakh area. And our bases, permanent bases, big bases are Leh, which are Thois. These are and Kargil. Okay, these are the bases which are, got a permanent runway, and they are the bases, the lifeline for supplies and other operations and all. Now, Kargil is very close to the border, but still we need to increase its capability and capacity to handle air operations. Thois has got a little bit of a limitation because of the surrounding hills and all. Leh is a big base. We need to have more bases and operating services. Daulat Beg Oldie, although it is activated from time to time, it is difficult to maintain because of the terrain and prevailing situation and the snowfall and other things. And once again, it is too close to the border. So in actual war, these airfields will be in direct line of fire. So generally what is said is that these airfields may not be available for you to put your aircraft there. But towards development of forces, toward deployment of forces, these airfields are useful. Point I'm making is more number of airfields, better it is. Now, I'll not call it airfields, I'll call it operating surfaces. Okay, if you have heard the news, you must have seen in the news last 5-6 years, India is also in Indian Air Force, along with the road ministry, all the new highways which are coming up. Places have been identified where it can be, stretches can be used for aircraft landing, and aircraft have been landing. Both the transport aircraft and fighters have been landing on these stretches near Agra and other places. So more number of operating surfaces, the better it is, for 2-3 reasons. One is, you can divert you can create more, you can put your aircraft all over the place, number one. For Chinese second artillery, for the attack when they do with the missiles, you have more number of targets. Second is you have more flexibility of operating areas. And third is disaster relief, which Hari Kumar must have spoken about it. It's a very good operating area for disaster relief wherever disaster takes place. So because of these reasons. Now coming back to Ladakh, the another airfield which is being developed at the moment is Neoma, which was on the cards for quite some time, and now it is being developed in a slightly bigger way. And while for fixed wing these airfields are required, we also need to develop helipads all along. That is what even China is doing, especially in the hilly terrain. More number of helipads where helicopters can operate, the better it is.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much for that response. There is one interesting question here. Will your views on Agniveer scheme? Will Agniveer attract talent?
Yeah, the first batch of Agniveer is already passed out. Okay, last week I think, and I've written about this Agniveer earlier also. And earlier I wrote down what are the challenges for the Agniveer, and on 1st of January I wrote down a piece on my blog on how to make the scheme work. Okay, now it is passed. The decision has been taken. I always followed this, even I cover this in my leadership, this thing also, that, decision making, while the process of decision making is going on, speak up, give all your views and pros and cons and plus and minuses and what are your apprehensions you have. But once decision has been taken, then work towards making it work. That is what I believed in. So on 1st of Jan, I wrote about a piece on Agniveer, how to make the scheme work. And basically under 3 verticals. One is organizational interest, second is individual interest, and third is the social repercussions. What I feel is the 75% of the Agniveer when they go out. So these under 3 verticals. Okay, so I've written in that. If I start covering, it will take very long. So I will just leave it at that, that all the 3 interests should be looked into, and it is possible. The most important aspect of Agniveer is that although the scheme has just started, it has to be taken in the view of an evolutionary process. If we do that, the scheme will grow and improve. That what I'm getting at is that we should do periodical reviews at various levels, at national level, at government level, at Air Force, Army, Navy level, at headquarter level, at various levels, to see what are the shortcomings and how to improve the scheme further and further. If we do that, I think it will evolve into a successful scheme subsequently. There are a lot of challenges. There are challenges are there. If somebody is interested, they can read these blogs, 2 blogs. They will get a fair view, a fair idea of the Agniveer scheme, its challenges, and what are the remedial measures.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Before Ashutosh or Chitra are opening their mics to ask your question, I will take one and probably another one, and we close it. We are already at 7:55, and we would like to probably wrap up very, very soon. Sir, you've actually commanded a variety of strategic initiatives and units in the long service career that you've had. You've been a leader on more than one occasions. So what are the lessons for us in terms of handling people of different nature? I know for sure by book that in the services, Army, Navy, Air Force, people of different nature is not a major dynamic or a variable. But then lessons for us civilians here when we are running our organizations, both government and private, both commercial and non-commercial. What are the top 3 lessons for us to assimilate and take people of different nature and then perform in tough circumstances?
You're jumping the gun. I had suggested to you that maybe we'll do one more session on practical leadership and management. So maybe you want a precursor to that. Yeah, very, very pertinent question. Okay, let me tell you one thing. When you do a comparative analysis with China, we had talked about China earlier, how do we deal with it and all. And a lot of comparative analysis at times is done. It's not only numerical comparison that they have so many tanks, so many aircraft, and the quality of aircraft is this, and we have so many, It's not only numerical. There is another factor which is very, very important. And that factor is the human factor. Okay, your leadership, your tactics, your strategy, your motivation of this thing, your training. These are all human factors. Okay. And in this field, let me tell you, we are way, way ahead. Our soldiers, our airmen, our sailors are very highly motivated. Okay, they're well trained. They've seen wars. They've seen action. We do exercises with practically every country, military of every country in the world. we are exposed to various militaries. So in that, we develop our own tactics. So this factor is very, very important. Okay. And that is where leadership comes in for any outfit. And, the corporate world and the military world can learn from each other. Earlier days, the corporate used to learn from military in, capability building, in team building. All right. Now it's the other way around. Corporate also will learn from military, learns from the corporate. So mutual learning. Okay. Another interesting thing, I'm working on a project where military strategies to be used in the corporate world. When it fructifies, maybe I'll tell you about it, and maybe we can have a session on that. That'll be interesting. All right. Now, coming back to your question in specific, what are the 2-3 things which are very, it can go on for hours on these. So one I mentioned just now is team building. It's very, very important. If you feel that you can do something on your own alone, you're sadly mistaken. It is a full team. Hari Kumar was there, he'll appreciate. He used to run cross country in the NDA, and it's not the individual performance which matters. It is the full team. So we used to, any straggler like me who was a poor runner, the others, good runners like Hari Kumar used to carry me up along. So what I'm trying to get at is that teamwork is very, very essential, number one. Second is human mind, you have to deal very, very carefully. Okay. And good leadership is lead by example, not do as I say, but do as I do. That's very important. Let me put one more point. I'm digressing again. When you mentioned that, I've held so many appointments and you've been a leader. These appointments don't make you a leader. These appointments gives you opportunity to be a leader. It is your conduct and behavior, how you deal with the situation, how you deal with the people, how you run the organization. That is what makes you leader. Good leader or a bad leader. But these posts give you only an opportunity. So coming back as a team, this thing, secondly, dealing with humans with empathy and is very, very important. And it is not, the leader has to be very, very transparent, very honest, very open, and that is very, very important. And third thing is that in any organization, you should allow, the atmosphere should be such that it should be allowed, people should be able to speak up. Okay, what I call in the Air Force's windsock, on the runways, you have a windsock showing you which side is the wind blowing. So there are a whole lot of windsock. They wait for the top man to his ideas, and then they speak according to that. That is not what is required. The organizational, firstly, the communication structure should be such that everyone should be able to talk to everyone. That is very essential. It shouldn't be linear. And secondly, the environment should be such that you should be encouraged. The innovativeness should be encouraged. New thinking, out of the box thinking, all these things should be encouraged. People should be able to speak freely. Okay. And last and most important is decision-making skills. That is very, very important. The leader should have a vision. It may be hazy, but he should be able to take decisions. He should be able to take calculated risk. That is very essential. Calculated risk has got another connotation. Not be rash, but yet taking into consideration everything, be able to take calculated risk. And if things go wrong, then have broad shoulders to absorb it and not pass the buck on to the others.
Amazing, sir. Amazing session. All the while, we have understood your views as someone who has led several initiatives on China, how China is thinking. A sneak peek into China's mind is what we can summarize this as this session for us to be fully aware of the advancement that China has made in terms of several verticals that it has invested into in terms of technology itself, and the full-blown approach to the art of war, Sun Tzu's art of war, whereas the India's response probably is along the Chanakya Niti that we are probably planning to follow or following. Several lessons that you have thrown open for us to pick up in terms of where the caution is required and where we are actually not leveled up in terms of the muscle power, and therefore we have to keep engaging with our neighbor China, and it is strategic to be reactive rather than proactive at this point in time. And several layers of information that you have shared with us from your point of view and also from the national point of view for where we are. So the summary is the structured thinking that we have vis-a-vis an unpredictable kind of problem, that is their structure of thinking. There's a vast difference in terms of results as well, in terms of the theatrics, in terms of optics, in terms of the actual performance on the ground as well. So we would like to thank you on behalf of everyone for this amazing session. And I want to thank Professor Prasad for chipping in with amazing strategic questions in the first module, and all the participants, including Air Marshal Hari Kumar, for raising that beautiful question on technology. With that question, we delved into so many details of computing capabilities, minorization, and then it is scary. That at that point I responded saying it is very scary, but that is a fact. Academic learning also leads to some kind of emotional moments of truth, and that's what has happened in the conversation with you, sir. It's been a very interesting session between the dragon and the elephant. We have learned a lot, and we are very thankful to you, and look forward to having many more opportunities to interact with you in person at various campuses that we have in the country. We have roughly about 16 to 18 campuses around pan-India, and we will definitely reach out to you, sir, and seek your time to connect with us wherever it is possible in any city. And I want to thank all the members in the audience for their active presence and some very, very interesting questions that they have raised today. And as I mentioned some time back, we will come back next Friday to learn from how to get things done in the government from one ex-bureaucrat. And see you next Friday at 6:30 p.m. Thank you all once again. Have a very, very nice weekend.